I myself was addicted to pornography for about 13 years, and it led me to some really dark spaces, even up to 20 something years ago, ending up in a psychiatric ward, nearly taking my life. What did porn teach me? Well, it taught me that women were objects, that women were less than, that they wanted me. When porn has been your mentor, then it teaches us how to relate to the world in a certain way.
Hey everybody, Hunter Otis here. Welcome to the Porn-Free Revolution. I have Dr. Andrew Bauman with me here today. How you doing, man?
Hey, doing well. Glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, super stoked to have you on. Really looking forward to our conversation today. I think for those of you that are listening in, obviously we're talking about quitting porn, right? But a big hole that is often not discussed is what comes after. So you quit porn, and then what? Like, what does healthy sexuality look like? What does it look like to be a healthy man, like in the absence of pornography? Because obviously, if there's been this dysfunction, now how do we have a healthy relationship with sexuality, with our partner, with ourselves, right? So we're going to be digging into that deep today. But yeah, Andrew, again, thrilled to have you here. Andrew also is the author. Check out his new book. It's called Safe Church: How to Guard Against Sexism and Abuse in Christian Communities. But he's written several. So there's quite a few there. Maybe we could even throw in the one around healthy masculinity and stuff as we go and talk about that today too.
Yes. Yeah. We'll be talking about some stuff from the book, The Sexually Healthy Man. And I love this topic. And I myself was addicted to pornography for about 13 years. And it led me to some really dark spaces, even up to 20 something years ago, ending up in a psychiatric ward, nearly taking my life. And so porn for me was such a balm to try to feel alive, right? Try to numb my pain and not deal with my heartbreaking story of my own abuse, my own parents' issues. And in many ways, porn saved my life before porn almost killed me. And so I'm thankful I'm about 14 years sober now, and help tons of men as well in this area.
Yeah, and the listeners, most of them probably know this already, but maybe not. I'm in the same boat, right? This was my crucible.
Yeah.
And man, oh man, did it wreak havoc on my life, my marriage, everything.
Yes.
So thank you for just being so open about your story as well. Well, let's dive in, man. So where do we start? Like you quit porn and then what? Like what is go ahead.
Well, what I tell guys is kind of stop looking at naked women on the internet is the easy part. That's the easy part. What's difficult is actually undoing the pornographic mindset and the pornographic style of relating. So what I say is that when porn has been your mentor, then it teaches us how to relate to the world in a certain way. So you can look up my article called The Pornographic Style of Relating if you want to know more about that. But we learn all sorts of ways how to relate. So for me personally, being on porn being my main mentor and my main teacher, the church being silent on the issue, except don't have sex. Like that was kind of the only topic, not actually empowering me to become a sexually healthy man. And then I have on this other side, the secret porn use and porn teaching me how to engage women. So what did porn teach me? Well, it taught me that that women were objects, that women were less than, that they wanted me, right? They all want me. So I walk into a Starbucks and the barista just wants to jump on me, right? It's just like whatever the fantasy is, it's like porn has given me that. And so here I am, this 12-year-old boy, the internet becomes a thing and I start consuming this. And it begins to get into my body and get into my mind. And so, 13 years goes by. It teaches me how to relate to women in a very abusive way, in a very power control way. And then I begin to put that towards normal women and I become an abusive man, right? I become a man who is not safe, who is not a good lover. And then eventually 20 years ago, meeting my, now wife, but realizing I don't know how to have healthy relationship. I don't know how to do this. And that was kind of the beginning of my deconstruction of what is sexual health, what is like, what is this? Because we cannot be, spiritually healthy if we're not emotionally healthy. We also can't be sexually healthy if we're not emotionally healthy. They all go together, right? And
Right.
so I was realizing how much untangling, unlearning, and relearning that I had to do.
Yeah, I think that's really important to key in on is just the fact, like, I think a lot of guys just feel like they're completely broken, like they're fundamentally flawed. There's something horribly wrong with them. But what you're hitting at here, and this was my personal experience as well, is like you were just either not taught at all, or you were taught things that were not helpful, and you simply just don't have the skills and understanding to
Correct.
know how to move forward.
Exactly. So what I found, working with men is, we infantilize men a lot, right? That they're
Yeah.
somehow incapable, or emotional intimacy is, their wives are so further along, and many times they are way further along. But
Mhm.
that's not because we don't know how, because we're not capable. It's because we don't know
Yep.
how to do it, and we've been socialized, what I call the socialization of masculinity. When do you see men eye to eye with each other? Well, it's only in combat, right? UFC or a boxing match, right? And so
Right.
in our weekend intensives, we have men literally 6 inches from each other's face pretty much the entire weekend, right? It's
Mhm.
like we have to deal with our issues of intimacy. We
Mhm.
have to engage what we most fear. We long to be connected, and we're terrified of connection. And so we have to learn how to be together, and we've been socialized that it's somehow wrong, right?
Mhm.
Or we weaponize gay people and say, oh, that's gay, or oh, you're being a girl, or we
Right.
offend the feminine. And it's like women are so much further along because they haven't been socialized. Many times, girls can sit there and play, be together, be intimate, emotionally intimate, and it's a normal thing, whereas guys, we have not been. you know for us, it's more about conquer and domination, rather than actually let's learn how to be intimate. And that's why you have so many men who are just starving for connection and don't know
Yep.
how to get it.
Right, and then feel like they're not allowed to. It's like they're
Correct.
desperate for that connection, but I'm not allowed to have it. I'm not allowed to be emotional.
Right.
Uh, yeah, so then it's like, well, what do you do? I love that you brought up that you make people get 6 inches from each other and have to, look at each other, be
Mhm.
close.
Right.
And that's kind of it, guys, is in order to overcome this, we have to confront this.
Yes.
Right. So you're not just going to magically master intimacy behind closed doors.
Right.
Right. That's what we tried with porn and it didn't work.
Exactly.
So we have to take a different approach. So maybe you can lead into that a little bit. Like how does somebody start
Yeah.
like building some of these skills? Like what does it
For
look like?
sure.
Yeah.
Well, what's broken in relationship is healed in relationship, right? So one of
Mm,
our, more terrifying workshops is a co-ed one, where women who've been abused and men who've abused women come together and are
mm.
6 inches from each other's face all weekend,
Wow.
and deal with their gendered wounds. It's like we have to fully run into it. What I
Mm,
say in the Christian circles that I'm in is that we have to fully face our crucifixion so we can taste the resurrection. Only then can we fully be liberated. But it's only after we've tasted full death. And so
mm,
that means fully entering into our wounds, fully going there, because we sexualize and we eroticize our wounding. And so whatever your wound is, you've eroticized it, right? So what type of porn do you use? That's the first 5 minutes of, my phone calls or my sessions. What's your darkest sexual fantasy? Like that's where we start,
mm.
right? So it's not because, I'm interested in, I want to hear all the gruesome details. I've heard so many horrible things over the last 15 years. I don't care about that. It's the roadmap to your wounding, right?
Yep.
Because porn is not accidental, right? Our sexual fantasies are not accidental. They're a map to our healing. And we've got to continue to explore without judgment, without toxic shame, but actually go explore our wounding so we stop acting out, so we stop hurting the people that we say we love.
Yeah. No, that's really hard, right? Because that means in order to face it, you have to feel.
Feel.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And to
Yeah.
feel means you have to feel pain, and we don't want to grieve.
Yeah.
We don't want to weep. And to me, that's the only
Mm.
way forward.
Yes. I mean, I talk a lot about grief with guys. I mean, this is what it was for me. And I don't know, maybe you can second this, maybe not. But For me, it wasn't until I was willing to really, truly grieve
Oh yeah,
on all fronts. One, the pain I'd
exactly.
caused in my relationship, the pain
Right.
of loss and abuse of my childhood or maybe neglect that was there, the
Yes.
pain of having to say goodbye to something that helped me survive. Like,
Exactly.
right, all of that, like that grief is so important. But
Vital.
in order to grieve, you have to really feel like,
Exactly.
and it hurts. It hurts a
Exactly.
lot.
Yeah. So many of us men do not want pain, and to me,
Yeah.
that's the only way towards freedom.
Yeah. Pain is the great catalyst, right?
Exactly. Exactly. So what? Yeah. What? I've got I think 12 categories here. What makes a sexually healthy man versus an unhealthy man? And so one of
Yeah.
the first categories is sexually healthy men are emotionally present versus emotionally distant, right? You can
Mm,
see it. I mean, I can notice it within 5 seconds of somebody's eyes. I can notice where, if they're into porn, if they're, because what that has taught us is it's taught us emotional distance, right?
right.
Because I don't need to be connected to who I'm jacking off to, right? It's
Right.
like, no,
Right.
that's actually the point. I don't want to be connected. I want it to stay in fantasy
Yeah. I want the opposite.
because if they're actually real, if I told the truth that I was participating in sex trafficking, that I was objectifying and abusing women, uh, then I might not be able to achieve an orgasm, right? That's so in a sense, I'm literally training in the gym of emotional distance.
Yep.
Right. So for years, 13 years for myself, I was training how to not be emotionally present. Whereas sexually healthy men have practiced this, have practiced emotional presence and have done the hard emotional work of the wounds we were just talking about and facing those.
Right.
That's the first one. Number two, a sexually healthy man is authentic and true versus unhealthy is secrets, hidden life, deception, right? And so I truly believe in my spiritual practice, like God is truth. And so the more we practice truth, the more we experience God. So we have to live fully authentic. No more lies. No more, well, I'm not going to tell my wife because I'm protecting her.
Yeah.
Bullshit.
Yep.
You are protecting you because you're a coward and you don't have integrity, right?
Right.
So we have to be fully authentic. Now, you have to be aware, yes, it is going to wreck her. And you have to be aware of the trauma that you are inducing on your wife, and she needs care as well. And so
Yep.
there's proper ways of disclosure and there's proper ways to care for her in that, but it doesn't give you license to continue to live in secrets. It
Right.
doesn't
Right.
give
And
you license.
you can
Mhm.
see how that like just flies in the face of masculinity, right?
Mm. Or
Because like to
perceived
me,
masculinity,
right, right. I
right?
mean, it's like to me, a healthy masculine man has this energy of ownership and integrity, right? Where they're
Yes.
willing to face reality, face the truth,
Yes.
and do whatever it takes to be honest and what have you. And when you're saying, I'm not going to tell my wife because it would wreck her and I need to protect her, like that's
Mm.
think about that for a second. Like if you're listening to this, like you're flipping your role, that masculine role of protector in on itself. You're inverting it,
Mm.
and it's really really damaging, and not just to your partner. It
Right.
wreaks havoc on you.
Well, who you are sexually is a reflection of who you are in every arena of life. So if you have a deceptive sexuality, if you have hidden secrets around your sexuality, guess what? You're going to have a hidden life in other areas. You're not going to have full integrity in other areas because
Yep.
it's a reflection of who you are.
Yep.
You can't bifurcate and cut yourself off, um, to like you're never going to be authentic. And so many of us want to say, no, I go to church on Sundays, you know, and I just do this secret little thing on the side. I'm just, I just objectify women a little bit, right? It's
Right.
just like, no. So and I meet with men all the time, or like, they won't admit their hatred of the feminine. And I'm like, wait a minute, you've cheated on your wife for 20 years, had this secret life. Does that look more like love or does that look more like hate?
Right.
We have to make peace with what we've done with the feminine. We have wanted to dominate and devour and to control and have power over because so many of us are underdeveloped little boys who haven't healed. And how do you feel big quick?
Right.
Right? How do you feel big quick? Oh, well, objectification.
Yep.
specifically of the feminine, where we haven't dealt with our mother wounds, where we haven't dealt with our father wounds, right? And so we take this quick pacifier of pornography, um, but not actually deal with what we need to deal with.
Right. Right. It's like the ultimate processed sugar validation, right?
Yes.
Yeah. No, I hope people are listening up right now, because like this is pure gold that you're dropping for everybody right now, by the way. I mean,
So
carry
yeah,
on.
yeah.
Number three.
Next section. What is a sexually healthy man? They live in community versus isolation, right? And community isn't just, it's such a buzzword. I remember, and again, God bless my younger self, but I remember, we'd have this group, and if you masturbated, we called it the jackpot. You had to put $5 in the jackpot, and we hid it in the church ceiling, drop down ceiling. I always want to go and see if it's still up there, uh, and get some money. But all we just did was we just put a bunch of money in the jackpot, right? It's like again, accountability groups is not community. That's not what I'm talking about,
Yeah.
right? That's not what I'm advocating for sharing of blood, and not
Right.
in the weird cult way, but
Right.
actually like grieving together,
Like getting in it with each other. Yeah.
bleeding together, because isolation is what led you here, right? The opposite of addiction is not sobriety, it's connection. And so
Yep.
we long for connection. We want it, and we don't know how to get it. And many times where, I do this often, where you're literally flipping people off with one finger, and then the other hand saying, no, come to me, right?
Yep.
I love you, and get away, because I want relationship with you, and I'm terrified of what it will expose in me.
Yep. Yeah. And that's where we see a lot of toxic patterns in our intimate relationships, right?
Yes.
Because man, we're so desperate for that validation from our wife or partner, and yet we're doing everything we can to push them away and
Exactly.
throw them under the bus.
Yes, exactly. No doubt.
Yeah.
So the fourth section is a sexually healthy man lives in reality versus an unhealthy sexual man lives in fantasy. We talked a little, this overlap as well with the truth authenticity thing, but reality is so less sexy. Reality is so, like, in a sense, boring. And when we've
Yep.
trained our brain to get off on the high, right, it's kind of a letdown. Wait,
Yep.
I'm married now, and I thought my wife was going to want to have sex 24/7. I thought marriage was a constant orgasm.
Well, that's what we're told, right? Like, the better
Exactly.
you are, like, the shinier your car is going to be. And, you just be a good
Exactly.
boy and don't ever think about anything sexual. And then when you get married, it's like off to the races, right? Rev that
Exactly.
engine all you want.
And then
Yeah.
realizing, wait a minute, sex isn't, and we'll talk about this later, but just fully selfish. Like, wait, my partner has desires. Oh, wait, like issues come, like, oh, I was lied to.
Yeah.
Like, fantasy sex is what porn taught me and purity culture taught me.
Yep.
Versus the reality is sex is a very small slice of the pie of relationship.
Yep.
And if you're emotionally connected, then your sexuality and your sexual connection will be stronger. But for many years, I heard, oh, women are emotionally connected and men, they connect sexually. No,
Right. No.
they don't. No, not at all. Actually, what should be taught is that the level of emotional connection, then that should follow then the level of sexual connection, right? So if you have a high emotional connection, you'll have a higher sexual connection. But we've completely cut that off because porn teaches you to have a high sexual connection with zero emotional connection.
Yep.
Right?
I love what you said about how we've been lied to. Like,
Yes.
maybe we can dig into that for a second, because you've been lied to by the world and by porn, but we've also been lied to, like you said, that purity culture. I mean, that was it growing up for me, right? Growing up in the Christian church, it's like, don't think it, don't look, don't feel it, don't nothing.
Yes.
Until you're married, and then you should just, it'll all magically be okay.
Exactly.
So how do we reconcile with that?
Yeah, I mean, there's so much there to unpack in that. But I mean, one of the things I think of as I think of Barna's old study from 2014 that said, some 50% of evangelical pastors had some type of relationship with porn,
Yep.
right? So when you think about that, and then you think of, okay, what does that do then to their internalized shame, right? So I can't be honest. I know I'm a fraud. If 50% of pastors are living with this, if I'm honest, then I can't. I lose my job. So what am I going to do? I'm going to project my shame outward. So I'm
Yep.
going to teach a lot about modesty. I'm
Yep.
going to talk a lot about women's clothing. I'm going to leave the door open if I ever meet with a woman to show, how honorable I am. Like it's all projection from my unhealed shame
Yep.
and my unaddressed shame, right? So much of what and why I even wrote my new book, Safe Church, and what came out of over 2,800 women is I researched over 2,800 women
Wow.
and their experience of sexism and abuse in the church. These are women who worked in the church, and it is horrific. And
Mm.
I think so much of it is coming from unhealthy male leaders who are insecure, that haven't done their emotional work, and are just literally projecting so much of their unhealed stuff onto women. And then what makes it even worse is then they call it God ordained, and then misinterpret some scripture verses, and then they use those scripture verses as a weapon. So now misogyny has seeped into our theology,
Yep.
and
Yeah.
it's disgusting.
Well, and you see this all over the place, right? I think, like you said, wounded, unhealed men now getting in positions where they're counselor, they're judge,
Yes.
they're, all of these things. And they're the
Positions of
spiritual
power.
positions of power, and they don't
Yes,
know how to handle it. And so
exactly.
you said the one side where they're kind of projecting that shame out. It's like, it's really, you're purging your shame by
Yes.
trying to be, virtuous and tell other people what virtue is. And it's
Yes.
like, it helps you feel better about yourself,
Exactly.
right?
It's another hit, right? It's like, oh,
Yeah.
I feel good. In a sense, it's like a false confession. It's like, in a sense, you feel like you've dealt with it when you really haven't dealt with anything. All you've done is you've dumped that, in a sense, that darkness onto somebody else or onto a
Yeah.
woman's body.
Right. Right. And I've seen too, I mean, I've seen time and time again too, just the young men being taught these principles, and it just hits me in the gut,
Yeah.
you know?
Yes.
Um, like, for example, for myself, the first time anyone ever talked to me about masturbation, for example, was when I was 12 years old in an interview with one of my church leaders.
Mm.
And I just remember the shame that I felt, because like I knew that I had
Yes.
figured it out, but no one had ever said the word or like put a pin on it as to what it was.
Right.
But now here I am with a man who I don't know,
Right.
and I am not have no safety with, right?
Right.
And now we're talking about masturbation, which
Right.
there's all this sexual shame in my own house just oozing everywhere, right?
Yes.
And now I'm supposed to be able to talk to this about, with some stranger, right?
Right.
And then the messages that go on is like, you better not do it. And then we're taught these things about women and sex, and it just really
Yes.
pushes the objectification. But anyway, yeah,
Exactly.
wow,
Exactly.
yeah, it's huge. So then keep going.
Yeah.
Principle 5
So number six.
or 6.
Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh, we're at number five. So number five is a sexually healthy man is a humble man versus unhealthy sexual man is an arrogant man. I've never met a sexually healthy man who's arrogant. All right,
Mm.
because sexual health comes at a cost, and it's the cost of humility. It's the cost of listening, right? It's the cost of, hey, I don't know how to do this, or I've done it wrong and I'm ready to do it differently. And there's a humility that comes with that. There's a brokenness that comes with that. And so, but so many men think they're, oh, my performance, I'm so good in bed, my penis is so huge, whatever it is, just so
Right.
stupid. It's
Yep.
such a shallow adolescent view of sexuality. Whereas actually healthy sexual men are humble men who've earned their scars. And it's
Right.
very different.
Yeah. No, I love that, because you're right. I mean, that arrogance comes in, and it's just really, if it becomes just about you,
Yep.
then how are you supposed to have a real intimate connection with your partner if it's
Right.
so focused on yourself?
Right.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So number 6 is immature versus mature, right? So similar to what we said, the adolescent view, and that's what happens in that pornographic mindset, and that pornographic style of relating. We begin to relate like we're adolescent boys and not men, right?
Yep.
So there's an immaturity to sexual unhealth versus an actual maturity. We outgrow porn because we realize porn doesn't give us what we thought it was going to.
Yep.
So we mature out of it. I can't tell you the exact time I stopped looking at porn, but I do realize, it was somewhere 13, 14 years ago, and realizing slowly, like, this is against who I want to be. This doesn't fit
Yep.
with the man that I say I am. And I no longer want to participate in this, and we slowly outgrow it and we mature out of it because it is an adolescent behavior.
Yeah. It's kind of like, I don't know what your thoughts are about this, but it's even for myself personally, I have a hard time with just surface level conversations with men
Hmm.
nowadays
Oh, yeah.
because it's so empty.
Yes.
And I'm kind of done with that,
Yes.
and I'm tactful, but if I start a conversation with someone, I want to know what's really going on,
Hmm.
right? I want to know what's going on with you. And my desire is hopefully, if it's an appropriate setting, right? Of course,
Sure.
that I can share a little bit about what's going on with me as well.
Right.
And like that's real. There's substance there. It has meaning. And I
Exactly.
think I noticed for myself, there's so many of my relationships were just so surface levels. Like, hey, how's it going? Good. How are you? Good. Da, 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 da. It's like you go to church and those like conversations are so
Right.
painful, right? Because they're just so shallow. And obviously, you're passing
Sure.
in the hall. That's hard sometimes. You can't just like always have that super deep conversation there. But
Sure.
the capacity, like, so a good sign of someone maturing is their ability to start having some more meaningful
Yes.
conversations with other men and women
Yes.
too. But yeah,
Yes. No doubt. No doubt. And that's how we can actually begin to feed what we actually long for, right?
yeah,
Which is that connection.
the connection.
That's seventh category. An unhealthy sexual man. It's based on objectification,
Mm,
whereas the healthy man is based on honor. So for us to be sexually healthy, we have to change our relationship with beauty. We
mm.
have to change our relationship with beauty. Whereas the unhealthy man objectifies and wants to conquer beauty. He wants to take it. He wants to devour beauty.
It's like a trophy.
Right. And so versus a healthy man says, "No, I want to honor beauty." So, I lived in Seattle for 15 years, and when Mount Rainier would come out and just tower over the city, it was an awe-inspiring picture, Mount Rainier. Just like, wow. And that's the same posture that we have to take towards beauty. So when you see a
Mm,
beautiful woman running by, wow, like God made her well, like she's beautiful.
right.
But that's very different than, oh, what I'm going to do to her. I'm going to go, take this and
Right.
blah, blah, blah,
Right.
blah, right? It's like one is a posture of objectification and one is a posture of honor. We have to change our relationship with beauty. That's the
Mm,
work. Change your relationship with beauty. I remember we were on vacation. Uh, this is a long time ago, but my kids very little. Kids are very little, and we're in Vancouver, BC, and a beautiful woman walks by, just like I'm like taken, and
mm,
I turn and I look, and I'm like, whoa, wow, hey babe, look at her, she is beautiful.
mm.
And my wife looks up, she goes, wow, she really is. And then we just walked on, and that was it.
Right.
Why? Well, because she knew I wasn't going to go, to the bathroom and go masturbate about this woman.
Right.
She knew I wasn't going to objectify her. But in a sense, I was just in awe of her beauty in a healthy way.
Yep.
But I had been sober from porn for a long time at that point. It's like I wasn't in the midst of betrayal trauma where my wife was constantly triggered.
Right.
Like there's context to that, right? Where I had been sober, you know, I hadn't been cheating on my wife. I haven't, like, there's difference of
Right.
well, I just, every woman that walks by, I tell her how beautiful she is, and my wife freaks out. It's like, yeah, no, dud. It's just like there's context to it. But we had been healthy enough to say, well, no, I can honor beauty,
Yeah.
and my wife knows I'm going to be honoring it rather than devouring it. And to me, that's very different.
Well, this is really important too, because there's kind of two sides of the pendulum, right? We're either objectifying people as we're walking by, or I mean, I have a lot of guys, they're absolutely terrified of women
Well,
because they
that's a form of objectification as well.
exactly.
The whole bounce your eyes mentality,
Yep.
and the every man's battle is basically, no, let's just don't look at any beauty,
Yeah.
right? So
Just
it's
ignore beauty, reject
yeah,
beauty.
and so the two things are, okay, either indulge, consume, or ignore.
Yeah.
And I would say both give you indulging or ignoring will give you the same result.
Two sides to the same coin. Yeah.
Exactly. So there's a third way to learn how to engage beauty in a different way. And I wrote about this in my book, The Sexually Healthy Man. And there's an essay, and there's an essay online as well called Face to Face with a Dying God.
Mm.
And I'm in a workshop, training workshop, and co-ed workshop. And there's just this beautiful woman. And all of a sudden, I'm just started feeling all these things in my body. And there's only 8 of us in this professional training.
Sure.
And I'm feeling all this stuff, and the therapist comes to me and is like, checking in or whatever. And I'm just like having like a freak out panic attack, like crap. And I'm like, I have to say something. Like I can't be myself. Like,
Right.
and so I'm like, I'm, I'm feeling a lot of things because so and so is very attractive, and I feel a lot of shame for my porn addiction. And it was just weird. And the therapist goes, okay, why don't you guys come to the center of the circle and sit down and stare at each other?
Wait,
I was
what?
like, I was like, ah, crap. And so here I am face to face with this beautiful woman, and I have to start doing my own work
Yeah.
6 inches from her face. And so I tell her I'm attracted to her, whatever, just basic stuff, but then begins to come up of what's actually going on beneath the surface,
Wow.
and begin to talk about my shame of my porn use and my abuse of women and her kindness. She's so kind, and we're talking through it. And then eventually the therapist stops us and he says, now, Andrew, turn to the other women in the group. And he goes, women, what did you see? And they just begin to talk about how honored they feel. And I thought they'd be feeling like pissed because I'm
Right.
sitting
Right.
there confessing,
Or look at this
and
guy.
like
Like,
working through or yeah, some creepy guy who's like,
yep.
objectifying this woman. And they all honor me. And then he says, and I'll turn to the men in the group, and they're just like, holy crap, I'm terrified. I could never do that. Whatever. Like they were just, so impressed by my courage.
Right.
And so I write about that experience. But the point being, we have to face this in safe contexts. We have to face this stuff. We have to face the objectification in the honor of beauty. And at that point, I was still working it out, but I was able to work it out in a safe way. And I had a wife who was like, yes, please do your work. Like, go do this work. I mean, it led me, and I wrote about this again in Sexually Healthy Man. At one point, it led me to a cuddle therapist, which was very weird. That was even probably weirder than the other one. But I'm like, I can't lead men if I'm not willing to lead myself. And I
Right.
realized that I was still eroticizing touch, and I was like, I don't want to. So I end up at this weird, and I'm not telling your people to go do this. This is just,
No, but
again,
yeah, you got to tell us about this cuddle therapist.
this is this is my
Yeah.
journey of trying to have integrity. This is probably 10 years ago. But I'm like, apparently cuddles and therapy is a thing. So I look it up and I find somebody, outside of Seattle, and I show up at this random woman's door, and I'm like, I probably wouldn't be good to have some very attractive college girl. I was like, I knew myself well enough to be like, I need a mother figure. Like I got to work out my issues with my wounds with my mom. And so I show up at this lady's door. I found this lady, knock on her door at her house, and it was very strange. But she start talking about it. She's like, "You might feel aroused. That's normal." We did it, just talking through it. And then I just tell her, she's like, "Why are you here?" And I was like, "Well, I lead men and trying to become sexually healthy, and I realize that I've still eroticized touch, and I go through the whole thing of why I'm there." And at one point, I'm like I'm holding her, and it was just weird. But then like she's holding me, and like I just began, at one point we're staring at each, like we're crying together, and I'm like, I don't even know what's happening now, but it's like so healing for me.
Wow.
And I'm like, and I'm probably never going to do this again. Um, but like, I was listening to my body and
Yeah.
pushing myself into very uncomfortable spaces to know I still had these wounds. And I'm still doing that in my own, my own therapy now of like, I did
Yep.
some cranial sacral work yesterday that was pretty weird. And I'm just like, I'm trying to continue to have integrity and push myself in these spaces. And it's like, this is part of our journey. We have to listen to our body and realize God lives in our body, whatever space you're in. But I had to
Right.
go out of my Christian bubble to find really good care. And that's why I feel like now, we're kind of bringing in all sorts of modalities in our work to help men. And now I feel like that's really potent work. And we do tons of body work, hands on, with
Yeah.
clients dealing, tons of somatic work. And, but it's like finally, I feel like, yes, we're getting at the beneath of what drives the porn use, because just talking 10 steps how to stop looking at porn is not helping anyone.
Right. Well, I love just like we have to lead by example,
Hmm.
right? And even in our relationships, if you've damaged your relationship, like you need to lead the charge as a man. It's like lead the charge into that healing. You got to start
Yes.
facing this stuff,
Yes.
and everything else starts coming downstream of that. But it's just such a powerful. Wow. I mean, I can't say I would have ever thought to go and do that myself, right? But wow, I mean, what a powerful story, right? To be able to really, I mean, essentially, you're going into the lion's den and facing your ultimate fears.
Yes. Yes. No doubt. Exactly. And that's, once we face them, it releases their power over us,
Yeah.
right? That's the crucifixion that leads to resurrection,
Right.
right? I don't want to be a slave to sexual, sin. I don't want to be a slave to pornography. It's like, I've got to face it. Now, does that mean I need to go look at porn, and face it? No, but
No.
it does mean I need to face women. It doesn't mean I need
Yep.
to, I need to face this within myself.
Yep. Yeah. And I shared the example. It's kind of silly, but it's the Scooby Doo example. Like every episode, they're terrified of the monster, and then like they're just the whole time they're spent running away and hiding and all this craziness, and then at the end, the mask comes off.
Right.
Right? They're like, oh, it's the freaking librarian. Or it was just this machine making a scary noise. And don't get me wrong, this stuff can be really hard to face, but
Right.
when you pull that mask off and
Yes.
see it for what it really is,
Exactly.
something can be done about it.
Exactly. And what we do is, instead of, again, ignoring it or indulging it, it's like you learn to relate to it. You
Yeah.
learn to relate to your monsters, and you realize they're not that bad.
Right. Right. Amen. And you're not alone.
Yes.
Like how many other men are facing the same stuff? And it's like, whoa, I'm actually not a freak. I'm not a pervert.
Yes.
All of the above. Right.
Exactly.
Yeah. Wow.
So, got a few more categories here. Let me see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Number 7. This category of a sexually healthy man is, an unhealthy sexual man is fundamentally selfish, versus a healthy sexual man is based in mutuality,
Mm.
right? And so, what porn teaches us, the pornographic style of relating, is fundamentally selfish because it's about my pleasure. What do I want? Click, click, click. Up, okay, up there. Oh, a woman like that. Oh, I want her to bend over like that. Click, click. It's all about me, and it's
Yeah.
all about using and objectifying and feeling an unhealthy sense of power. Versus healthy sexuality is, there's two people, and it's based on mutuality, giving and receiving of pleasure. Okay,
Mm.
what do you like? What do you not? And we get to practice, and we get to know each other's bodies, and we get to know what feels good and what doesn't, what we like and what we don't. That is healthy sexuality. And we actually get to learn how to play with each other. And that's a
Mm.
beautiful thing.
Yeah. I love it.
Number eight, number eight, unhealthy sexuality. There's aggression versus kindness. A sexually healthy man is a kind man. All right. He's patient. Actually, that's the next one. We'll get to that one. But kindness versus aggression. So, what happens in unhealthy sexuality, right, the demand, the aggression is, do this, right? It models pornography,
Right.
right? You're not living up to this standard. You're different than the airbrushed porn I've been looking at for
Right.
20 years.
You're not meeting my needs,
You
right?
have a
These are my needs.
stretch mark, right? You have your one breast is like, it becomes so horrific, and there's an aggression and a demand versus, well, the kindness and the patience of saying, like, hey, let's learn this together. Let's practice. Let's figure out what we both like. Like,
Right.
that's a healthy view of sexuality
Yeah,
versus
it's like it
the
becomes
demand.
like it's the adult healthy playground, right? Like
Yes, for
to be
sure.
able to go there with your spouse and explore and have fun and
Right.
play,
Exactly.
like kind of like the previous principle, right? Like being
Yes.
able to play.
Yes.
Imagine being able to really play and be present with your partner when
Exactly.
you're being sexually intimate. Yeah.
Exactly. And I kind of combine two. The next one's demanding versus patience. And so we'll skip to the next one. There's only two more left. But this one is, an unhealthy sexual man is an insecure man versus a healthy man is a man of strength, right? He knows who he is, he knows why he is, versus
Mm,
just an insecure little boy who's using sex to make himself feel better.
right.
He's using sex, to mend something. Whereas the
The
healthy man,
pacifier.
yeah, the healthy man knows who he is, and there's a strength in him, and he is secure in that.
So that kind of alludes to kind of our sexual energy kind of being harnessed and used in other areas of our life then, yeah?
Hmm. Yes.
So it's not just in the bedroom. Like sex is not just about
No,
sex.
it's back to the same thing I said earlier. Who you are sexually is a reflection of who you are in every arena,
Yeah.
right? So if you're living in deep insecurity, that will come out in your sexuality. That
Yeah.
will come out. I mean, it has to, right? It comes out in every area of life. And so, um, that strength, if you are a deeply insecure man boy, it's like you got to do some work.
Mhm.
You got to dive in. I'm not mad at you, but it's like, let's stop hurting the people we say we love.
Right. This is interesting too because this just came to my mind. Tell me what you think about this, but how our success even in career and in finances and providing is directly tied to our sexuality.
Yes.
And it's because of this, right?
Yes.
Um if you're insecure in all these other areas of your life and feel, you
Hmm.
know, irrelevant or less than or whatever, like it's going to impact your sexuality.
It will come out sideways somewhere, right?
Yeah.
It will come out in your sexuality.
Yeah. So it's not about making more money, but it's about being secure in your
Yes.
role as provider and in what you're doing in your profession and finding
Knowing who you are and knowing why you are.
why you are. Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah. Love
exactly.
it.
Yep. The final category of sexually healthy man is an unashamed versus ashamed, right? And I use unashamed, not in the same as like shamelessness. We're not talking about just, going streaking and being like, oh, I'm so unashamed because
Yeah.
that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about that deep shame that so many men live with around their own bodies rather than making peace with our bodies.
Right.
And yeah, basically there's this, I'm not going to live in that shame anymore, about my penis. So, you can find it in my book, Sexually Healthy Man. One of the essays is learning to bless your penis. And it's like, how do you actually start blessing your penis that it's good? Because
Yeah.
if you've used it as a weapon, many times you've turned against your own penis, versus actually learning to honor your body and the God that lives in your body. And so, but an unhealthy man is a man who lives in toxic shame, versus a liberation that no, like, I am good.
Right. Yeah. Something my wife and I have done actually, was life changing for us is starting to really honor our bodies through our sexuality, right? And love our bodies. And so spending time together and literally verbally, vocally praying.
Yes.
And this, I mean, would blow some Christians' mind, right? But during sexual intimacy, also praying and thanking God for this goodness, this body, this
Oh
pleasure,
yes.
this
Oh yeah.
gift, right?
Definitely.
And being able to include that, I'm like, that was game changing for us.
Yes, definitely. And to me, that's so much more healthy, right, than what we grew up with, of our bodies being fundamentally bad. And then when you
Right.
throw in, we work with a lot of men and women that come from sexual trauma and sexual abuse. When you throw that in, right, so many sexual abuse victims have turned against their own bodies because they felt like their body betrayed them.
Yep.
Or, I got aroused when my penis was touched, or,
Yep.
by this neighbor boy or by this abuser. And it's just like, yeah, that all that means is that your penis works. Like,
Right.
congratulations. Like, that's actually what happens.
Right.
Right. And but we turn against our own body
Yeah.
and we curse our body, which actually then pushes our sexuality further underground
Yep.
and further into places of shame, and then acting out and being more deceptive.
I hated my body. I
Yes.
mean, I hated my body. I remember just, even again, you're praying to the God that made you.
Yes.
And I was praying to the God that made me and
Yeah.
saying, please take this whole thing away from me.
Exactly.
I mean,
Oh,
think
totally.
about that.
I wanted to be a eunuch, right?
Yeah.
It's like I wanted to cut off my junk so I wouldn't have to deal with this.
Right. Right. But we got to
Like
integrate
trauma.
it because
Exactly.
God made us this way for a reason and it's a gift.
Exactly.
Man. Wow. Andrew, I mean, I hope that, seriously, I hope that many, many people listen to this, because this has been extremely insightful, and obviously people need to buy the book.
Definitely. Yeah, no, no, no. Yeah, if you're interested in, the sexuality stuff, the book, Psychology of Porn, these are just small, easy books,
Yeah.
for my clients. And then the Sexually Healthy Man. And then after that, I kind of put them three together: How Not to Be an Ass, Essays on Becoming a Good and Safe Man. And so those three are small, easy reads. And then the more robust work is the book, Stumbling Towards Wholeness. It's kind of my idea of kind of therapeutic change. And then my newest book is Safe Church. And yeah, how to guard against sexism and abuse in the church.
And I'll put links for all of these things down below the video in the description. But
Yeah.
if someone's interested in working with you, how do they find you?
Yeah, you can reach out at www.christiancc.org. My wife and I run the Christian Counseling Center for Sexual Health and Trauma.
Mm.
And we have workshops and retreats all over. Folks from all over the world are coming and diving in. So we're doing some good work here, and deep work. But yeah, we have our co-ed groups and our men's workshops.
Okay, amazing. Yeah, I'll put everything down below. And guys, please just take this and just know there's nothing fundamentally wrong with you.
Yes.
You just have not yet learned the skills, learned
Yes.
enough about yourself. You haven't yet unpacked your past, your history.
Yes.
You just don't understand yet. And that's okay. Like, you're
Yes.
in a process of development. The only thing that you have to do in order to start this journey is make a decision to face it and get in the ring.
Yes.
And sometimes you just can't do that by yourself. You need help.
Yes.
So working with Dr. Andrew, right? Or jumping into, there'll be a link below for this as well, the Porn-Free Brotherhood, the Porn-Free Revolution, with what we do, like uniting with other men and women.
Yes.
And working through your stuff. You got to face it. You got to start now.
Yes.
So, man, again, Andrew, thanks so much. This has been
Awesome, man.
fantastic.
Yeah, great meeting you. Thanks for having me. Thanks for the work you do.
Yeah, likewise. We'll talk soon.